the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I call today's meeting to order. First part of business, approval of minutes, September 15th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. 4-0. Next on the agenda, Commissioners' comments, reports. Commissioner Kiefer, would you begin, sir?
Nothing today.
Thank you. Commissioner Meimelschmidt?
No comments today.
I didn't take
Commissioner
long.
Wagner?
Just wanted to give out a shout of congratulations to the Hagerstown Aviation Museum. I got to attend their official lease signing for the hangar spot in the Fairchild building for their home for their aviation museum. Nice event, nice presentation. They did a wonderful job of the effort it took to get there. Now they're probably going to need donations somewhere down the line, so everybody ought to be keeping them in mind. But anyway, I think that's it. We did something else, but I think you were there, so you'll probably talk.
Yeah, I went to the Globe Bar, the grand opening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that it, Randy?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, first I just want to announce I attended the grand opening of the Globe Beauty Bar. They reopened in a larger facility at Governor's Lane Boulevard. I want to thank them for their investment in expanding their business into Washington County. And I also want to congratulate Doug Levine and Andrew Eishelman and the staff out at Black Rock, which includes Dave Brooks and Ryan Crabtree. Originally, the Maryland Conference for Association of County Engineers of MACO of Maryland were to have a golf tournament in Ocean City, and through the assistance of Andrew and everybody I just mentioned, and Doug Levine and Dave Brooks and Ryan Crabtree, can't say their names enough, but there was 40-some engineers from across the Maryland for the first time at Black Rock. The comments about Black Rock were outstanding, said they'll be back. The weather was perfect, but I want to thank all those involved for redirecting a canceled tournament up to Washington County and giving more exposure to our Black Rock golf course. Again, thanks to all for doing that. That concludes my comments.
Hey, Jeff, can I say something? I forgot, we attended the McCleary Hill Habitat for Humanity, where they broke ground, and thanks to the county for sending some PR out. They broke ground for, I think it's 6 lots right now, and they had 2 families already waiting. So Habitat, I think, has a total of 6, maybe 7 lots with the possibility of another phase. So that was a nice groundbreaking. The families were excited. So that's it, Jeff. Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Jeff, I forgot one thing. I apologize.
Please go ahead.
I attended the first meeting. I got appointed to the National Association Committee of Counties, the Finance, Pension, and Intergovernmental Affairs Policy Steering Committee last week. It's already paid out because after being put onto this committee, I was able to send a grant application to the Board of Elections that they didn't know about and apply for. So it's already starting to pay off. So just wanted to point that out. It was an excellent meeting. We've got more to come.
Very good, gentlemen. Thank you for those updates. Next, we'll proceed to staff comments. Staff, Garrison, please come forward and introduce yourself in the matter.
Good morning. Garrison Plessinger, the Director of the Hagerstown Regional Airport. Commissioners, I just want to give you a quick airport update. The Hagerstown Regional Airport Fire Station received a call of an aircraft accident last week. That was September 23rd. HGR Operations and Crash Truck 351 responded accordingly, followed closely by Washington County Sheriff's Department and the Division of Emergency Services. The 2-person aircraft crashed just a few hundred feet short of the runway. The 2 pilots were lucky to walk away with minor injuries. The accident is still currently under FAA investigation. I just wanted to take this time to recognize the airport staff as well as emergency personnel, both county, state, and volunteer, who responded to the incident. Also, while I have you, I wanted to give you a quick update on the construction projects we have going on at the airport. The terminal expansion is going quick, and we are hoping to be up and operational by early January. The passenger boarding bridge is currently being installed today. as well as the second project we have going on is the runway rehabilitation project. They have been working on relocating the approximate taxiways the past few weeks, and we'll be starting the mill and overlay of the main runway tomorrow. The mill and overlay of the runway will be completed at night as to minimize impact on airport operations. Thank you.
Kirsten, I saw a photo of a big crane out there today. Is that what's being done today?
Yep, they're putting the passenger boarding bridge up, so.
That's with that big circular.
Yep.
Thank
We're
you.
looking forward to that. Thank you.
Is there any other staff comments? Susan, please come forward. Introduce everybody and the matter.
Good morning, Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management.
Kay Rabusi, Election Board Director.
We're here this morning seeking approval to accept a grant in the amount of $90,512 from the Center for Tech and Civic Life for the Election Board. Typically, this would be done not in staff comments, would be an agenda item, but due to the nature of the grant, the amount of funding was not known until after the funds were actually awarded. It was based upon a formula. So once the application was submitted, the award letter came in, and there is a very timely issue of accepting that award letter and enabling the election board to spend those funds. So we requested permission to come in staff comments to get the seek the approval to accept.
Kay, do you want to say anything, or?
Yeah.
Very excited that, I'd like to thank Mr. Downey. He passed the information along to us, and so I had never filled out a grant, and Susan was so very helpful. And so we are just delighted to have some funds for this election. And what we anticipate spending it on would be sneeze guards for all the vote centers, so to have that added protection between the workers and the voters. Also received information that I could use it for security at each of the vote centers and during each day of early voting. So I've been in talks with the deputies in the City of Hagerstown Police, and then also PPE equipment in the form of spray cleaner and the bacterial wipes.
Okay.
And
Susan,
this is a grant that Commissioner Minos was speaking of earlier, is that correct?
Yes.
you're looking for a motion to accept the grant for the amount that you mentioned?
Correct, and there is no matching funds, just
Okay.
for awareness.
Commissioners, is there a motion to accept?
I make the motion to accept.
Second.
There's a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Congratulations to all who assisted. Very nice.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Are there any other staff comments? Please come forward. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Jonathan Hart, Assistant Director, Fire Operations.
So, Commissioners and, County Administrator, I'll get this right here in a second. For the second week in a row, I'm happy to be here to announce that Washington County is again an additional recipient of, this time, an Assistant to Firefighters Grant Award. That grant is a total of just over $1.6 million and will be used to buy much-needed self-contained breathing apparatus that have reached the end of service life throughout the volunteer departments in Washington County. It's a collaborative effort between the Volunteer Fire Company of Halfway, who acted as the host company, which was required because we would not have been able to apply for this grant directly as a county entity. And it was worked with in collaboration with the Division of Emergency Services, with Director Hart being our lead, working with a grant consultant, and then writing the grant and producing the information necessary to submit. So to give you an idea real quick, and I'll try to make it brief, but there are 10 companies that will be benefactors of the award. 7 of those are fire departments, 3 of those are EMS departments that have rescue squads. And then, of course, the Division of Emergency Services was also included in that. and we will receive about $116,000 of that grant. There is a 10% required match by all the departments to each of their individual allocation. For the division, we have budgeted funds to cover that, over $14,000 in our FY21 operating budget. So it's another great day. In 2 weeks, I just want to emphasize that Washington County has been recipient of approximately $9.7 million of federal monies, which come to town not only in any big budget year it would be beneficial, but in the COVID-19 era, this is significant again, and again, goes a long way to supplement the volunteer fire and EMS departments in the county. And I'll let Director Hart have a comment if he has anything to add, and if you have any questions, we'll work to answer that.
I don't have any additional comments except that we had a great working sessions with all of the volunteer departments, and we're particularly thankful to Halfway, the volunteer fire company of Halfway, for serving as the host for the grant and taking on the bulk of having to go through the application process, and at the end of the day, it being successful. So we're thankful to everybody who participated, particularly Halfway.
I just have a curious question. You might have already covered and I missed it. They said 7 fire companies and 3 MS. How was that determined, what 7 fire companies? And just because of an application, is that what it was?
It was an open opportunity given to the entire 26 company regime of the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. Several companies have been recipients in past of AFT grants or have already upgraded SCBA, so we're not in a position where that was necessary. But there was no exclusion on part of the grant, on part of the grant submission. It was an open opportunity for everybody to apply.
Right. Thanks.
And then the only other thing, just for clarity, we will not be needing to come back to ask permission to accept the funding, because Halfway is the host. They will be the accepting agency. So we're in good shape on that. So, again, thank you for support.
Congratulations. Very good week for
Thank
you guys. Thank you.
Who wrote the grant, Dave? The Halfway wrote it? Or did you write it, John?
No, our office with consultant Brian Vickers
Gotcha.
wrote the grant. We were the coordinating agency. They were the host agency. They were required to make sure that their FEMA Go account was up to date and their DUNS number and all that requirement was in place and appropriate. But
You guys are getting pretty good at writing grants.
we're getting better, so.
What are you going to do next week?
Radios.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you for the time.
Continuing with staff comments. Who's next?
Commissioners, I'd like to yield my time to Paul Fry, President of the Chamber of Commerce, for some brief remarks.
Good morning, sir.
Morning,
Please
Paul.
introduce yourself and the topic. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Paul Fry, President and CEO, Washington County Chamber of Commerce. Commissioners and county administrators, thank you for having me here this morning. On behalf of the Chamber, we had our annual meeting last week, and we recognized some folks in the community who had done extraordinary work here in the last 6 months, in particular in the COVID-19 era. And I wanted to read what I said that evening and acknowledge the folks here at the county who were part of this initiative. I quoted that evening from Winston Churchill. He said, "When you're going through hell, you keep going." And as we all know, COVID-19 has not been an easy time, and we've just kept going as a community. This is a Washington County Economic Partner Award. On or about March 20th, a group of Washington County Community Economic Partners began meeting at 8:30 a.m. every day. Named the ESF 18 Work Group, or Emergency Support Function Work Group, the team consisted of myself, Dan Spedden, Visit Hagerstown, Dr. David Schuster, Horizon Goodwill Industries, also representing our nonprofit organizations, Jim Kirchable, the Greater Hagerstown Committee, Jill Thompson, City of Hagerstown Business Development, Susan Small, Washington County Business Development, and Andrew Sargent, Maryland Department of Commerce. Our charge was to work together to help the business and nonprofit community be able to respond to the emergency phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. This included, in many cases, how to transition to a remote work environment, as well as how to access the available financial resources that would allow them and their employees to survive the economic crisis caused by the pandemic. As the response to the pandemic moved forward, Danielle Weaver, Director of Public Relations and Marketing for Washington County Government, and Tom Brown, Emergency Manager, for the Division of Emergency Services, joined the team for our weekly meetings. At that point, our focus shifted to how do we get businesses open again safely and responsibly. This team of 9 community partners worked tirelessly day and night and 7 days a week to assist all of our county businesses and nonprofits as they navigated the available financial and support resources, regulations, and required guidelines associated with the pandemic. It has been a privilege and an honor to work side by side with these consummate professionals, all working on behalf of the citizens of Washington County. So on behalf of the Chamber and the business community, I want to again say thank you for the partnership. Again, I tell people I'm not a world traveler, but I get around enough to know that our county and our community works really well together, and as we move forward, we'll continue to do so. And I wanted to again recognize Danielle Weaver, Susan Small, and Tom Brown. I know Susan was there that evening. Did Danielle join us this morning?
Yeah, we need Danielle and Susan.
Yes,
And I know Tom, I think, is out
Yeah,
of town.
there's Danielle, Susan's.
Eric will accept on Tom's behalf. Unfortunately, Tom is out this week.
Great.
You want to,
So on behalf of the chamber, I sanitize my hands. Tell us how you like to do this.
you want to do it in front of here?
Yeah, Katie, get in there, we can take a picture. One of us can take a picture.
Everybody can spread out.
We have, Andrew's gonna do that for us.
Okay.
Do it right there in the center.
See how far back I gotta
Big John.
I know you worked really hard on the grants as well, so thank you for that.
Your public works director, you
There you
call him
go.
on for many
Oh, let me
days.
get some of these out of the way, so.
clutter it up as much.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, we'll take a bunch, keep smiling under those masks. I can tell. Okay, excellent. Do you want to do any more, or are you good, Katie? Danielle?
We appreciate it.
Mr. Fry, thank you for those awards and recognizing our staff. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paul. And the county staff, thank you for all that you've done and continue to do to support the economic recovery in response to the COVID-19 crisis.
Can I ask you to announce the way to be on citizens participation? Okay. Next on the agenda is citizens participation. I think we had no one registered. Krista, would you be so kind to repeat the policy or procedure for people to participate?
Any citizens wishing to present during citizens' participation at a BOCC meeting are required to submit the request to me at khart@washco-md.net or by calling 240-313-2204 at least 24 hours in advance to the meeting and following the release of the agenda the week before, usually on Fridays. So give me a call if you wish to participate, and I'll be glad to get you added.
Hey, Krista, we might want to get PR to notify local radio stations because they're still announcing that we're closed.
Okay, we are closed to general public.
In general, but this is the policy on
Right.
order to come in. Okay.
I also have 2 board appointments, if I may.
Oh, please go ahead.
I have the Animal Control Authority wishing to reappoint Gary Kaufman to serve a second 3-year term, August 1st, 2020 through July 31st, 2023, as the citizen at large.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I have the Washington County Gaming Commission wishing to appoint Leon Debs to serve a first 2-year term from October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
First, is there a second? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you.
Hurt. Mr. Downey, any other?
No other comments.
No comments? Next up, FEMA Staffing and Adequate Fire Emergency Response Assistance Grant Award and Acceptance. Gentlemen, please come forward, introduce yourself and the topic.
You can get up there, can't you? Oh, no, I guess not, Kingsley. John's behind.
John, just pull another chair up off to the side or
Yeah, get this one, John, over here, this one.
keep some distance. Thank you.
Good morning.
We can get, if we need, we can get the other microphone.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Jonathan Hart, Assistant Director, Fire Operations.
Kingsley Poole, Chair of Emergency Services Advisory Council.
Dick Hopkins, Co-Chair, Emergency Services Advisory Council.
And listed on the ARC, but not able to be here to an unscheduled commitment, is Dale Bishak, President of the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. And he sends his apologies. Commissioners, we're here looking for a motion to authorize the Division of Emergency Services to accept the 2020 Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA, SAFER Grant Award of $8,080,776, and to proceed with the advertising and hiring of 33 firefighters as prescribed within the grant award and narrative. The report in brief, in the fall of 2019, the board authorized the division to make application for a FEMA SAFER grant that would enable the county to hire 33 firefighters, full-time firefighters, and those firefighters will be used to staff 4 strategically located fire stations throughout the county, basically placing 3 firefighters on duty at each of those stations 24 hours each day, 365 days a year. We're happy to report that we've secured 4 stations that have agreed to be the host. Those stations are Clear Spring Fire, Williamsport Fire, Sharpsburg Fire, and Leitersburg Fire. And it also would include 1 full-time firefighter on duty at Hancock 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And the application of the 33 plus the 33 total will allow us, that configuration will allow us to keep the full-time paramedic at the Roarsville Fire Station, which has been there since 2009. So overall, the fiscal impact, as we had reported last week in staff comments, the cost share, the 25% for year 1, 25% year 2, 65% for year 3 have all been waived. FEMA is covering 100% of the cost of the firefighters, less their annual physicals and their uniforms and those soft costs. And then in the 3 years of the grant period, we would be responsible for any approved raises or changes in benefits. But other than that, the cost is fully reimbursable to the county throughout the 3 years. At the conclusion of the grant, that would cost us in current salaries today $2.7 million. And if you remember last year, we made a budget forecast that incorporated that escalating cost into future budgets, even though they're not approved, but we did account as to how they'd be paid for. The concurrences are the county administrator, of course myself, the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, and as representing here, the Emergency Services Advisory Council. I'll allow Director Hart to tell you just a little bit about the process in and of itself, relative to how we're going to train these folks, which is the Frederick County side of things, and what we're looking for in a small change in the job description, which is the title, moving it from a firefighter 2 to an FAO, firefighter FAO, which is a firefighter apparatus operator. And then we're also asking you to allow us to amend the job description from 19 years of age to 18 years of age, which will allow us to potentially hire some of the graduates from the Tech High Academy, which wouldn't be 19 upon graduation. But outside of that, that's the basic changes that we're asking to that job description. That updated job description was included in your packets, with the only exception being it still lists them as 19. We're asking you to authorize that change to 18. And then the only other thing we had done was break out some of the prereqs for the job that we're going to handle through an academy. So we've basically looking for a firefighter 1, emergency medical technician, and the NIMS certifications as prereqs to be hired, but at the conclusion of the academy, they would have to meet the full job description, which includes about 6 or 8 other certifications that we would basically delivered during the academy.
Can I interrupt just a second, Dave?
Yep.
On that age amendment, they're a huge resource at 18 years old coming out of that tech school, right?
Yeah, they're fully.
How many do
funded.
they graduate a year about?
Kingsley's probably best to answer that.
Between 15 and 20.
Between 50, are they firefighter one when they come out?
They
They're firefighter two? So they would be ready to go right into the academy?
Yes.
Okay, that's all, thanks.
Just on the little additional that, I remember last year Mako was talking about this. I cannot remember what county it was, but they moved it from 19 to 18 because of their tech program in high school and their applications, because their big thing was is people left, they had to wait a year, they found another job and they were gone. And their applications went up, I can't remember, but it was like 50-60% the first year that they did it. They received such, increase in applications from their tech high. So it was a huge plus. I cannot remember what county it was, but I remember them talking about it in one of our meetings. So I 100% support that. I think it's a great idea.
I just want Director Hart to tell you kind of the process we're gonna use for the intake and getting them turned over.
So we will be going through the application process, hopefully starting beginning in October, and going through a process whereby we do a physical agility to establish they have the physical strength and stamina to do the job, then going through a background investigation, a medical physical, and a psychological exam. Once that's complete, that's going to take a few months, obviously, especially the background investigation, which is being performed for us by the sheriff's office. That could take up to 6 weeks, perhaps 8 weeks, so that kind of slows the process to get that number of personnel through. Once we've identified the candidates and gone through the hiring process, we'll be initiating an academy. We think we will be working with Frederick County to use their facility for up to 8 weeks in order to train. I can't get this thing to stay up. In order to go through the process of doing all of the classes that we've outlined to make, and many of them are going to have some of the qualifications that we'll be teaching again, but it's really about putting all of this class of 33 recruits all on the same page, establishing that they do know how to do these tasks, these skills, they have the requisite knowledge, and that they're learning the Washington County way, so that when they hit the street 8 weeks from now, they're well trained, they're operating on the same page, and so we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a rather intense process. We're very, very thankful to Chief Coe of Frederick County for offering that facility, which is much bigger, has many more props and facilities to use than we could use here locally, because locally the only facility we currently have is the facility on Bowen Avenue in Hagerstown. So this will be an opportunity to, plus 33 is an incredible number for a recruit class. So it's the case that it would be difficult to train that many firefighter recruits at a facility the size of Hagerstown. So we're very thankful to Chief Coe.
In a few years, we'll have our own training center.
Do you think we'll have any pre-qualified people applying that wouldn't have to go through the academy, or no matter what, we'll bring them all through the academy?
Our intent is to bring them all through the academy to create a couple scenarios. One, it creates an opportunity for them to bond as groups. Second of all, we don't know who they're going to be, and we may not even know the person, even though they may have the credentialing. We don't know what their physical ability may or may not be. But the backside of that allows us to evaluate them as individuals to see who best fits potentially what part of the mold. So our intent this time is to bring all through, graduate them all together as academy, and then that will be our academy recruit class 1.
One more thing is why, if you can come up with explanation for it. If you're required to be firefighter 1, correct? I think Dave and I talked about this earlier. And if you have some problems getting qualified people, and they have to go to the academy anyway, if I was a 25-year-old diesel mechanic and I wanted to be a firefighter, there's no shot at me at doing that unless I'm a firefighter 1. Is that correct?
That is the case right now. It may very well be the case that going down into the future, we will be at the point where when we when we do hire firefighters, that we are bringing people into the system that have no training whatsoever, and we're gonna start with firefighter 1 and EMT. Right now, we're taking advantage that, hopefully there are people with those prerequisite training.
Gotcha.
And skills, which enable us to shorten the training process and get these people on the street as soon as possible.
All right, thank you.
Speaking of that, can anyone speak to timelines or target dates as to maybe when we expect to hire our first group going through the training, and more importantly, when they get out into our communities? When might that happen?
Right now, do you want to answer that?
Oh, you got it.
All right, right now, we're looking at early February, being the point at which we officially hire the people, and we're looking at doing an 8-week academy after that point. So 8 weeks, 2 months after, let's say February 7th, we would be turning those people out and placing them in the fire stations.
Okay. So one thing we have asked HR to do in conjunction with us is to look at processes that are in place, how we normally hire, and is there any opportunity to come back to the commissioners for a variation or a variance in that policy that may compress timelines. We'd like to be ahead of that February, but I don't think there's a real probability we can, especially with 2 major holidays falling in there. But we're going to compress everything we can and try to shorten that window. And again, Deb Condo and her staff are looking at all those opportunities to see if there's anything we could bring to you for consideration.
I know you guys have thought of this, but just so, what happens if you bring 33 in the academy and you only have 27 finish?
That's a real probability, and I don't have an answer for that today, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to overcome that if people fail out of the academy. Well, no, we'll be okay. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking of it. So we're required in 180 days to hire 33 people. They understand for any reason, meaning FEMA, they being FEMA, that we could lose an employee for any number of reasons, to include the academy. We can rehire.
Okay.
So as long as we're showing a reasonable effort to rehire a position, we will maintain 33 positions funded.
Perfect. I wanted to make sure that, if we didn't hire, we could do another academy later at some point, or hire somebody else to fill that
We
position.
have 180 days to hire 33. We have to hire 33. If day 181 hits and we've hired 32, that's our grant, 32 going forward.
Thank you.
Then you gotta go to Plan B, because your formula doesn't work out with 30 or 28.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, gotcha.
For the record, all the concurrences are listed, but I want to thank ESAC for being here and your concurrence to support this project, this grant.
And you
Dale?
have anything to offer?
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're glad to participate, and I think this is something that's going to be a big benefit to the county.
Mr. Hopkins?
Again, thank you as well, Mr. President, and I think this is a great opportunity, and looking at the fiscal impact that they're providing for us to be able to implement this system, I think is a real benefit.
Okay. And Mr. Fishak is absent today because of another obligation, but
Right.
he has supported the Fire Association for this
Yeah,
grant acceptance.
we've been very fortunate. Kingsley and Dick have been strong supporters of this initiative, even since I've came to the division. And again, the association has endorsed this, the ESAC has endorsed this, and obviously our office endorsed it.
One of the overriding themes I've heard of all this was, this is never to replace our volunteer system.
That's
They're
right.
instrumental in this community being a volunteer system, but this SAFER grant is to help augment, to help support the volunteers. Just recently, over the past 2 weeks, there's been numerous calls that stressed our system of responders to the max. And I want to credit this whole entire board for keeping this issue out in the open, and that we're finally trying to provide solutions and support our volunteers in this way. So again, to Dave Hayes, all you guys, DS, everyone, a heartfelt thank you for bringing public safety to the issue and helping with this grant. Thank you.
Kingsley, and Dick, how long have we talked about this at ESAC meetings? I mean, it's a big day.
It is.
Yeah, it's a big day because, we've beat this around since I've been a commissioner, and David and John, and it's just, we've talked a lot about it.
Okay, if there's no more comments, I'd call for a motion to,
Make the motion to authorize the Division of Emergency Services acceptance of the 2020 Federal Emergency Management Agency Safer Grant Award.
You gonna amend the 19?
Oh, well,
Two
I think it
things.
should be two separate.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
okay, have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, congratulations.
And then I make the motion to change the qualification requirements from 19 years of age to 18 years of age.
I'll second.
I have a
Can I
first and a
ask you to
second.
add,
Oh.
and also change the job description from firefighter 2 to firefighter / FAO. It better aligns with where we're going.
Okay, then I
Okay.
will amend that to make it from firefighter 2 to firefighter / FAO.
As stated. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a first and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, 4-0. Congratulations. Thank you, everyone, for your
Thank
hard
you.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kingsley.
For clarification, did those motions and the board's actions allow Dave to move forward with advertising
Yes.
the positions?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you, Mr.
Hey,
Downey.
Kingsley, Dick.
Thank you and congratulations.
Next up, bid award, delivery of road salt. Please come forward, introduce yourself.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brandy Noggle, Buyer in the Purchasing Department.
Good morning, Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works.
The recommendation I have for you this morning is the bid award of $1477 for the bulk delivery of road salt. Move to award the contract for the purchase of the bulk delivery of road salt to the responsive bidder, Cargill Incorporated of North Olmsted, Ohio, who submitted a bid for $58.94 per ton. This salt will be purchased on an as-need basis by the County Highway Department to maintain county roads for snow and ice control. The county uses an average of 15,000 tons of road salt annually. The contract is tentative to start October 1st, 2020, ending April 30th of 21. The above recommendations for county requirements only, the city will make their own independent award. This bid advertisement was listed in the local newspaper, the county website, and the eMaryland Marketplace website. 22 companies downloaded the document. We did receive 9 in on September 9th, 2 of which was a no bid. Funding is available in the Highway Department's FY21 operating budget.
Commissioners, thoughts, comments?
Motion to approve the bulk delivery of road salt for bid award.
Second.
Have a first and a second. Any further discussion?
I
Hearing
just
none,
want to
all-
say, real quick, I'm glad that we've moved to an average amount of purchasing. I know it was a little bit more in our budget this year, but it's a much more realistic budget, that we averaged it out. I think it was over 5 years instead of just kind of guessing what we're gonna do. So thank you for that. And
Yes, we appreciate that. I believe it's $750,000 is what's in the budget for this year, which is more reflective of what we've used over that 5-year average.
thank you.
Very good. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, thanks. Welcome back.
Yes, I'm still here. Rolling into a related item, I'm seeking a motion to allow staff to execute a 3-year salt utilization agreement with the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration. So during certain winter snow emergency operations, we may have a need to acquire additional salt to effectively complete our winter snow operations. So the contract we just voted to move forward with would be our primary source. The option with State Highway and their salt domes would be a secondary option. So basically, this agreement allows us to acquire salt from them. If the need arises, we would reimburse MDOT SHA for the cost plus the related expense. At this time, the cost per ton is $63.81, which is slightly more than we just secured with our own bid.
But that's after everything goes, we have a backup.
Yes, yeah, so in that scenario, we would actually have the county truck go to the State Highway Salt Dome, they load it, there's tickets processed. That's how that works. That's, like I said, a secondary option in case we don't get delivery or we would run out of our supply.
It's not that much more, like 40 cents a ton or something, or 50 cents or?
Was it $3-4?
Yeah.
But like I said, the other thing is, I mean, feasibility, it's a lot more overhead. We have to do the transportation. So I don't think we've actually used it in the past several years. It has come up, was it 2014?
I make the motion to approve. I think it makes sense to have a backup plan.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, first and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I believe next is CARES Act. Thank you, Wayne. There you go.
Thank you.
You got her. Susan, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am here today to give you a bit of an update. We were here on August 18th to discuss the CARES Act funding for tourism marketing. And if you recall, we discussed the options for spending the remaining balance of some CARES Act fund for recovery efforts related to tourism marketing. We moved forward with releasing $80,000 at the initial phase 1 effort for this, and reserved an additional $210,000 for a possible second installment for a phase 2. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, Dan Spedden and his team has done a really nice job of putting together a presentation for you to generally see what has occurred since that decision was made in August to spend some of that money regarding their marketing. So it was attached in your packet, but to give you just kind of a general overview, they put together how the money was spent starting from the beginning, and the marketing demonstrates how it's gone into play, remaining open for history, family vacation, artistic endeavors, recreation type visitations. They're continuing to promote a safe travel to our nearby markets with road trips, long weekends, outdoor recreation, that type of thing. And the CVB would like to present this with the idea and discussion of potentially moving forward with the phase 2 for fall foliage and holiday or early winter advertising. They again want to reassure the commissioners that they have not and will not spend the CARES Act on any operational funds. This is specific to destination marketing. Just looking at generally how the phase 1 allocation was spent, the insertion of the visitor guides, digital ads, and print ads was a cost of just over $28,000. And from that, they put 25,000 visitor guides into the Sunday edition of the Washington Post. And I just heard this morning from one of our stakeholders that there was some feedback from folks in the Montgomery County and Washington, D.C. area, just saying how impressed they were to see that when they opened up their Sunday edition of the Washington Post, that a Washington County visitor guide fell out. They also did digital marketing campaigns along I-81 to sort of target the drivers by going rest, refuel, relax, to stop by and potentially fill up, get a bite to eat, rest if you need to. Also open for recreation, and then the additional truck wrap and print ads all totaling for that first $80,000 installment. Just taking a look at how the website analytics went, they saw a significant increase of users specific to September 4th, which would have been the first week that this was put out. It hit the Washington Post digital ads on that day, and the insertion of the visitor's guide was that weekend also. The data shows an instant 84% increase in new users. And honestly, that's huge. That's the amount of folks who visited the website just based on those guides and everything falling out of their Washington Post. The next page is a summary of year over year, 19 over 20, and you'll see again that giant jump at September 3rd or 4th of page views. When folks visited the CVB website from these advertisements and some of the digital campaigns, the main page that was visited was the things to do. So they're obviously looking for what is in Washington County. And if you look at what they were specifically interested in, they were looking at kayaking and hiking and biking. So again, safe outdoor recreational activities that brings folks here to the county to enjoy what we have here to offer in recreation. They had an initial 418 plus thousand plus impressions on their website, which is how many times it comes up in front as a view. 1,350 clicks. So how many times someone literally clicked on that page to go a little bit more in depth, which is, again, huge, fantastic rate of over 30% engagement. So just want to point out that the ad displays and the native displays were really a big hit on their website. Again, just looking at where they went, 65,000 folks looked at kayaking. We had open for rest, refuel, relax was over 45,000, and that's just by a day. So each day hit at least that 20 to 30 to 40,000 impressions. Lastly, just looking at the occupancy rates, based on these results, there was an accolade forwarded to the CVB from the Maryland Office of Tourism regarding the week of August 28th, which was again the first week that this was put out. Congratulations to Hagerstown, Maryland, and Charleston, West Virginia, with a huge transient week-over-week pickup. Many markets seeing improvements each week. Hotel revenues compared to the same week in 2019 were down 69.5% the first week of April in 2020, and the first week of September 2020, and after an aggressive advertising campaign, the revenue was down 34% over the same week. So we've jumped up 48.8%. So just again, those are real numbers, folks who are visiting here, staying here, eating here. So just want to point that out as some of the results of that $80,000 CARES Act investment. Moving forward, the phase 2, they want to do additional truck wraps. Truck driver 2 would go a little bit further up and down 81. So just sort of exposing it a little more on the corridor. More print ads, which again seem to be more, but spreading them out over both magazines and daily print, like the Washington Post and that kind of thing. Additional digital campaigns, and then additional video and print publications.
Susan, just a comment, basically.
Sure.
I'm sure they've thought this out, and I've seen some of the statistics you just said, but it seems like to me their digital is working the best, their website, and I think you just made the remark that print was sending it there. I just don't know if it was just a comment. I mean, they know their business better than I do, I'm sure, but I've advertised a lot in my life. Print ads at 97.6, and then you're still doing some print ads at 70,000. You got $167,000 basically going toward print. I'm wondering if that, and a comment for Dan if he's listening, wonder if that large amount of money couldn't be more spent on
more digital?
Instagram, Twitter, social media, and maybe take some of that 97,000 and use it, take it away from print. I've known in my life that, and I know the print people won't want to hear this, it doesn't work near as good as the technology part of it anymore. So that was just a suggestion, and I don't know if you agree or disagree, but
it's really hard to tell right now. A lot of people are on their computers because a lot of people are home right now, but they're trying to find things that are safe to do, that take them outside and back into experiencing new things with their families, with their friends, safely. So yeah, I mean, I think
if technology, if that money spent on technology, boosting it out over the internet is better money spent than print. It's just me talking.
Yeah, it could be. And I think Dan could definitely look into that, with his advertising, with Manning Media and those that he's using.
When do you think they'll ask for the phase 2 money to be released?
I mean, I think we need to start thinking about it soon, in the next 3 to 4 weeks. The leaves are already starting to change, and they want to start hitting fall foliage as well as, you know, the holiday season.
How about today?
I'd love to ask for it today if you're ready to make that decision.
I'd motion it be approved, but I'd like you to check into it, see if they can
Sure.
adjust. And that's not a stipulation, it's just a
Yeah,
suggestion.
but Dan and I have been talking about this on and off. We talk about the
Well,
effectiveness of some of
It definitely looks like
it.
their work is paying off. It's success with the data that you're presenting.
That's a motion. I'll second it. I agree that this needs to be done. I went downtown over the weekend, and there was people from DC and stuff coming to the Schmackel Stew, and they're looking at our theater, you know, asking when it's going to be open, because they've never even seen or heard of it before. And that's exciting, and I don't want there to be a break in that. While the weather's nice, let's try to keep people coming up here so they see what's going on.
I
That's a
agree.
first and a second to
Thank you.
release the second phase funding. Is there any other comments, discussion?
Just one comment, I agree that I think it looks like the results so far have been very positive, and we've gotten a good bang for our buck, so to speak, and let's hope we can replicate that a second time. I'm just looking at some of the business categories that seem to be a target. Wineries, some trails, kayaking you mentioned was important. I don't see anything that specifically might target restaurants, and it sounds like, you know, we do have people from out of state, from the city, coming to our restaurants, but I also heard of a report recently where 50% of current restaurants may not be in operation by the end of this year, obviously because of COVID. Would be nice to see, and it wouldn't be necessary for me to approve this, but if there could be something special done for our restaurants, local eateries,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they have suffered as well, and just that statistic is pretty
Yeah,
glaring.
it's another good suggestion for
Yeah,
Dan to
definitely.
address along with the print. Thank you, Wayne. I have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion to release phase 2 money to CVB?
So the understanding is the $210,000 from the CARES Act fund will be released with the discretion for Dan to make certain adjustments to the proposed spending. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if he could just come back one after the numbers are final, just
Yep.
to let us know what's going on, that'd be great. Just
Yeah.
I'd like to see the comments adjusted if possible.
All right,
Definitely.
Hearing no more comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good job, Dan Spedden and CVB. Thank you. Next up, employee vacation leave carryover. Please come forward, introduce yourself and the topic.
Good morning, Commissioners. Deborah Condo, Deputy Director of Human Resources.
Daryl Brown, Accounting Supervisor, Budget and Finance.
We're here as a follow-up to our discussion, or my discussion with you concerning employee vacation carryover from 2 weeks ago. I was able to gather more information and have invited Daryl Brown to present with me regarding court's request about the figures for a scenario for if we would pay out a certain amount for hours over the 250. Excuse me. I do want to let you know that I consulted with our labor attorney that we use, Doug Damaris, concerning the accruals and placing any type of caveat on how they could be used, whether or not that we could only allow them to be used for time off work or put any stipulations. We cannot. Vacation accruals are perceived or considered an earned income of types, so you cannot limit or put any special requirements on the use of them. I was also able to follow up for the alternates, though the drastic measure is something, I believe he called it a California rule, which is capping future vacation accruals. What that would mean is, say an employee carries over 300 hours, 50 more than the 250, then employees would not be allowed to accrue more until they burn down their vacation accruals to the 250. You know, that's from the way he was talking, did not sound like it was something that he would want us to consider, though I can't speak for him. Those were my two follow-ups, with the exception of, I believe, Commissioner Kiefer requested information on how many employees that we do have teleworking, whether continuous and/or intermittent. A rough figure across the county is 137. That is as rough estimate as I could get. A lot of the numbers within that 137, they either come in and work partial days and/or they rotate days, and/or they come in to do the work that they cannot do from home. We have probably less than, I would say, less than 40 or less that actually work specifically from home only, that do not come into the building.
Is this an all or none? Is this, if whatever we do is all or none? You can't modify, right? I'm just
You mean the vacation leave,
Yeah,
accrual carryover?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. Just for instance, our direct COVID workers are totally overtimed. I mean, they've worked a lot of hours. Just say emergency management, the people tied directly with managing the plague, or COVID. I'll call it COVID. I'm just wondering, now that was a lot less than I thought. What Commissioner Kiefer asked for is only maybe 40 or 50 that's always at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what I'm getting at here. I think I'm getting at that there's some people that don't have a choice. So those people should not be penalized because they had to be here
They weren't able to use their vacation.
7
because of
days a
their
week.
job or
But there's some people that, worked at home. I guess what I'm asking, is it all or none? Not that I'm proposing that, I'm just curious.
Oh, no, regarding the legality of it, I would have to reach out to the labor attorney
That was just
again.
yeah, that's fine.
Well, how's the landfill figure into that? Because they call themselves, or they're really a 6-day operation.
There's six.
We had to
yeah.
keep that open, and they weren't able to take vacations. So how do we create parity and treat everybody fair when all the jobs are so different?
I also have a quick question. So it's over 250 hours. So how many hours does an employee earn a year?
It depends on how long they've been with the county. Employees that have been with the county over 15 years, 15 or over, get 4 weeks a year. 0 to 5 is 2 weeks.
So in 2 years, if they're getting 4 weeks, they could have spent it in 4 weeks, then they're at 8160. So in 2 years, they've maxed out their amount if they didn't take vacation in 2 years. They're over 10 years employees.
I didn't hear the last part.
If they're over a 10-year employee, it could take 2 years and they've not taken a vacation, they've maxed out.
Right to you.
I mean, the reason we're having this conversation is because HR has gotten questions as to whether the limit is going to be raised because people have not been taking vacations because of the travel restrictions and the general conditions. I mean, they just haven't wanted to go on vacation in this type of environment. So,
Plus, technically, they'd have to quarantine when they came back. Technically, in some states.
Not in this state, though, at least.
Yeah.
Depends on which states you visit, I think.
Yeah.
so that's what's given rise to the question and this conversation today.
But I would like to add.
250?
Pardon me?
How many people do we have over the 250 hours?
It was 227, is that correct?
I have, the analysis I did, we have about, doing our projections to the end of the year, a rate around 243.
Does HR have a recommendation?
We are not going to be able to be fair to all. I would prefer not to make a recommendation because there are, well, and I'm not trying to be political or coy.
I was trying to put you on the spot. So
No, there are, to Commissioner Klein's point, President Klein's point, the solid waste employees work well over 48 hours a week. They work 6 days a week. Highways employees. Now, we had our highways employees and our water quality employees that had varying schedules, near the beginning of the pandemic, because we didn't know, we had no idea how to treat or respond to this as a business. You know, and what I was going to say earlier, even those employees teleworking, HR is swamped reacting to everything with this pandemic. You know, it's regardless of whether you're teleworking or you're working at highways or you're working at solid waste or you're working at, you know, 80 West, we've all been affected one way too. So it's hard to be fair to all of the different groups. Like you said, 911. I can only imagine that their workloads increased as well. And I expect that with the FFCRA and the child care that that's having an effect on them too. So to be fair to all, I don't think we're going to be able to be fair to all.
And this was my thought earlier, and I just want to make sure that I understand. We have 243 people that have over 250 hours, and they've got to spend it to 250 hours by January 1st.
December 31st.
December
midnight.
31st. If we tell them we're not going to allow it, we're going to have a lot of vacation requests between now and December 31st.
Yes.
And then at that point, we're going to get a lot of overtime hours because people aren't into work.
Right.
And that's what brings to my next question was, can we buy out some of these hours, and how much would that cost? And do we look at what the differential would be?
Daryl's put together information on that.
The projections that I worked up that came up to the 243, what we do know is what the employees will accrue to the end of the year, and that's what we base this on. So of those 243, if we paid out up to 40 hours to bring them back down to their 250, it would be a projection of $272,640. Then I also did it as if we did it as of 30 hours, a projection, and that would be $211,614, and then I went one more notch and did 20 hours at $146,273. That would be the cost. Now, that's a projection, that's a cost as of right now, that's what they're going to accrue. The unknown is the employees in here, the ones who have scheduled time off around the holidays that we don't know.
Right. Wouldn't it,
So these should be high projections.
or wouldn't it be just if the people, the 243 roll over, because we'd be, if they roll over, then we wouldn't be too much worried about a blitz for vacation.
Well,
But they would stagger their vacations out the following year.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I said if we don't cap it, this
Right.
is what could happen. That's why I wanted to make sure that's the reality.
Right.
We say, hey, we don't do this. It's not like it's a money-saving venture because we're going to have a lot of people coming in. We're going to spend a lot of money in overtime.
Right.
But I also feel for the people that saw the 250 and they started spending their vacation down a day here and a day there, not to overburden their department, and now they lost it. So it's kind of.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to what HR just said. It's gonna be terribly hard to be fair to everybody. And it's not a good thing for me even, but I don't, you know, it's sort of a dilemma. There's people that had to work and couldn't be off, and they're gonna be penalized because they can't roll over, they don't get paid or something. So I think, in my mind, I have to take care of the people who are directly directed to the COVID situation that had to be here. And I saw them here, they were here all the time.
Yeah, the only other thing, and that's why I asked her how many hours. A 10-year employee earns 4 weeks of vacation, so that's 160 hours. So that means they haven't taken, even before this year, they didn't take vacation. So that's my only caveat to that. This is not, you didn't raise 300 hours in the last 10 months. That didn't happen. They didn't take vacation for the year prior, no matter what. And for most, if they're under 5 years, it's 3 years prior. So that's the.
I'm curious to know if maybe in any HR publications you might get, maybe payroll journals you might look at or in the news, what might some private businesses be doing? I think largely carrying over vacation time is kind of reserved for the public sector employees.
Yes. Typically, private employers, a former place that I worked gave you 2 weeks vacation up to 10 years. If you did not use it by December 31st, you started off the beginning of the year accruing again. That's a use it or lose it. some companies allow a 2-year or 2-week carryover. We're different than the private sector in that respect. You know, I can only speak to my own communications with colleagues or whatnot. We have a very generous benefits program that's insofar as days off and with our health insurance. I did ask that question to the labor attorney to find out, you know, are we different? What's unique, you know, government as well as private? And he said typically 200. I believe Daryl said that he spoke with someone who said 120 is a carryover.
I also want to be careful, like you said, Deb, you know, there's not a perfect solution for every employee, where every employee is going to feel justified in some way. I understand that there were restrictions on traveling this spring and summer, and some employees may still feel not like going on that big vacation, even though things are opening up. But also, we don't have you know, we may have a lot of employees who can't afford that trip to Disneyland regardless of whether or not, you know, things are closed and travel's restricted. So I think I would want to be careful about that. You know, staycations, staying at home. I know a lot of people who have done that. They took their week of vacation. They stayed at home. Not ideal, obviously. Most people would probably want to travel somewhere. But I think if we're looking down that road to fairness, you know, I hate to say it, life's not fair. You know, not everybody's in that situation to take that big vacation anyway. So I don't want that to be a reason for me to support this. Just my thought on that. I wonder, I've heard from employees and with concerns that maybe those employees who did get to work from home may not have had to utilize paid time off for a doctor's appointment or a vet's appointment or something where they would typically have to use a vacation day or half of a day or a sick day because they were working from home. It was easier for them to kind of slide by. Don't know if that's true or not. I'm not pointing a finger at all. Where those employees who had to report to work every day, those employees, if they had a doctor's appointment, they had to schedule time off and they had to use their time. I'm wondering if we looked at those 137 employees who telecommuted versus those employees who did show up to work and had to work every day because what they do can't be done at home. Any kind of statistics on, okay, those employees who worked at the office continued to use their vacation days and sick days as normal versus those employees who telecommuted maybe didn't use paid time off because they didn't have to?
I know that we do offer something called flex leave. It's in the handbook and it is used by all of the departments, or to the best of my knowledge, all the departments, where I remember under our former county administrator that he preferred that it be done within a pay period. So if an employee would have, like a newer employee that didn't really have a lot of benefit time, did need to go to, say, a doctor's appointment, they could flex their time by coming in early or staying late. There is no reporting of any way. Our timekeeping, the timesheets that we do are done bi-weekly. Now, I believe that emergency services, Division of Emergency Services may do it differently, but I don't know how we could track it. To the best of my knowledge, I haven't been to, you know, like you as well as the others, you hear rumors, but I have never been given any hard information for me to follow up on.
It's supervisor driven, the system, which means a supervisor has to approve it, so the timesheets and, you know, what Deb was saying, our experience, I know within our departments, you know, people who are teleworking are using their time.
Just another additional question. During this carryover period, if next year they have 320 hours and they leave employment, how's those hours being paid out? Or if they retire?
It's fully paid out. It's theirs to get paid out. That's, I think, what she was getting on earlier with the legalities of it. If we carry over that amount of time, they'll get that paid out.
Now, and then I just have another question because, you know, I think there needs to be a compromise somewhere between this. And so my initial thought is, and again, this is just a thought, it's not a motion, the thought if we go to 290 hours as of July 1st. So it's giving people that extra week, but it caps off on July 1st. So it's giving us now, they're gonna know they've got, instead of 3 months to get rid of their 40 or 60 hours, it's giving them 9 months to get rid of that, get it below the 2 year. You know, is that possible? So it's giving them time, so we're not gonna get this influx of overtime, everyone trying to crash in their hours, but it's giving them a time period so that we can spread this out. Is that possible?
Well, yes, it is possible. My concern, what I thought of immediately is highways and snow removal. You know, they're getting ready to go into their peak. As soon as snow season starts, they're gonna be on call, and that may place a burden on that
Why don't you
department.
go through the end of next year? That's probably easier with Daryl on this payroll.
But I'm thinking it gives them to the end of June, so
Oh,
they still have the summer that they can use their, you know, half the summer. They still have, you know, April, May, June to spend out even highway department.
I think Kirk's suggestion you go further though than June.
Well, and I understand that, but at that point we go further, then we're pumping it up, you know, they're still accruing a lot, and this is gonna, you know, continue next year. That's I'm trying to cap it so we don't get a whole influx point, because I also don't know if I agree that they should have it for a whole year, because you didn't, this is not a one-year event, is what I'm saying. If you didn't spend vacation 1 year, the most you're gonna have is 160 hours. So you didn't spend it the year before, you didn't spend it. In most cases, if you spend part of it, it's probably the third year before that if they're under 10 years. So I don't see how this is a 100% COVID-related incident. This is you didn't take a vacation the year before, and then you didn't, now it's COVID, you didn't take a vacation, but here's the reason.
What if you just rolled it over for 1 year and that was it? Just 1 year and reevaluate the second time? I don't know.
Well, that's fine.
Just for, you know, we'll call it what you want, the plague or whatever, COVID, I mean, you just rolled over 1 year, right?
You could do that. We've done that in the past.
And we did it, the last time we did it was South County flooding, right?
That I don't recall. I believe it was December 2017.
December 2017, they increased it a one-time to 240
Yeah.
From 200.
from 200. And
I mean-
then the following year, then they increased it to 250.
What did you
Where we're
guys
at
think
now.
about just one time, just roll it over this time and reevaluate? Don't make it a policy by any means, just.
You know, I think there's another cost, and help me define this maybe a little bit. It's not just a financial cost, employees who might not be here, that's also lost productivity for our citizens. And we're in a hiring freeze right now. So some of our departments are more shorthanded than they otherwise would be. Our citizens still need their services. How does either path forward affect that? I guess if we have a flurry of people taking time off before the end of the year.
That's a concern
That's a
that I
concern.
have. I am concerned that if we don't do anything, that it'll put a strain on our departments. You know, our policy is that employees are supposed to request their vacation in advance, and that a department head or the line manager approves a vacation based on department's needs. Like if, you know, you're looking at water quality or solid waste, they are experiencing a shortage of labor. So for an employee to take off 2 or 3 weeks to go hunting, that places a burden. Not that they would, I'm just citing that as an example because now we're coming upon hunting season.
Well, if we only have 30% of our employees that can roll over, or 25%, 243 can roll, that have extra hours, correct? Is that what I heard? I said, I would be okay with letting it roll over this time, because that's like 25% of our employees. That's not putting you still got 75% hanging around. Yeah, so I mean, that's sort of the way I think, but.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't know which departments they work in, so I don't know, I mean, that's 75%.
probably-
If they all work, say, Yeah,
Well, but how could you hurt by rolling it over? I'm not,
Oh,
how
I'm
would
not
you hurt anything
saying,
by just rolling it, letting the 243 roll over? It's not like we're letting 800 roll over, because we don't have 800 needs to roll over.
correct. That's correct.
Now, just to clarify, so in 2017, our rule was 200 hours. So then we bumped it to 240 for 1 year, and then we made it a policy to bump it to 250. So in 3 years, we've gone from 200 to 250, and people are still not using it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It is something that needs to be better managed by the employee as well as the division director, or the directors, or even line managers. You know, vacations do need to be planned. It is something that employees are at jeopardy of losing their time. You know, they do earn it, and they need a work-life balance too. I know this year has been beyond weird. It's crazy. We don't know what next year is going to be, or this coming year. You know, I would like to think that things will move back into the norm that we're used to, but we still don't know that it's going to be getting better. So what do we do if they can't take vacations next year? We're going to find ourselves in the same position.
I don't know. I don't think there's an easy fix for it to me. I'd say roll over, and if you want to adjust it for a following year to 250 somewhere else, just play it here. We don't have a crystal ball. People, it seems like this is the worst year we've had. I'd be okay with rolling over 243 employees.
Is there something that we could do? You don't know who's talking because we all have these things.
I recognize the voice, though.
Is there something we could do? I still think, right, there's not a perfect solution, but who we do seem to be hurting in the end are those employees who've had to report to work. So I don't think at this time I'm ready to vote to support this, because as the history shows, 2 times during my tenure, as Daryl mentioned on those dates, we have made exceptions, and we've been very generous with that. I think it does seem to be above those average norms that you shared, about 150 give or take hours could be rolled over. So we are rather generous, I think, in that already. I still don't think, you know, even those employees who might have wanted to take a vacation this summer, they're not all taking that big vacation that they were restricted from. I mean, it would probably be more local anyway for a lot of employees. Those big vacations don't happen for everybody anyway. And we're probably going to be back here in 3 more years, bumping it up to 350. You know, and it's just a pattern that seems to keep on going. So I would urge that maybe we have better, like you had mentioned, Deb, better communication with our directors or our employees, helping them to schedule that. It's important for the employees' health that they're not here at work.
Agreed.
So, you know, they need some time off. I worked for a company that required every employee to take a full week, at least once a year. You could break up your other vacation days however you wanted to, but you have to take a full week. Part of it was for sanity. You know, part of it's for, you know, when an employee might be away from the office, you know, other things can be uncovered too. So it's, you know where I'm going with that. But I think it's healthy for an employee to take time off, and we need to encourage that.
I'm sorry, Wayne. Do you want them to come back with some information on your suggestion? Unless you're ready.
Yeah, but I don't want to keep kicking it down the road. We're running out of time.
We're off next week. A lot of employees have told me they need to know because of the reason, are they going to take all their vacations? So, gentlemen, what do you want to do?
I just have one other question. I can't say one more. Of these 243 people, are some of them going to have 253 hours, or are some going to have 320 hours?
The person at the bottom of the list has about right at 250. That they're going to, that's what I'm saying, these are projected, we projected them out based on what they will accrue by the end of the year with the unknown of what they've already planned. I'll just tell you, I'm on this list, but I've already got days off I've already planned that will kick me off this list.
Would you be able to come up with a list of that 243 of who is at 270 and below, 270 to, I'd say 290, and then above 290? Because, you know, I'm okay giving some time. I don't know if I'm willing to give a full year of of being above the 250, because if they're over 10 years and they're at, we'll call it 300 hours now, and they get 160 hours, they're at, 460 hours by the end of the year. And 250 is like 6 weeks. So if you're sitting there at 460, we're telling that next year they've got to take off basically 6 weeks of leave to get it back under the 250 mark.
And one of the
And that scares me.
one of the problems is, and I don't think we've probably beat around on it, but if you're in HR, just use you guys as an example. It's almost impossible to take off because you're so busy. Every department's in here asking for help. They're shorthanded. And if you're conscientious, a lot of people just won't take off. They want to be at work and do their job. And that's something I think that we got so many people that are, whether it be budget and finance or wherever, they have to be at work in their mind because they're so far behind, they're so short of help. And, it's.
Or the problem they find is if they do take off work, they wish they didn't because
because
they
it's-
can't
yeah.
get out of the hole of.
Yeah, now, I've been in that situation. You paid a penalty for taking off a day, so you decide not to take a day off. So there's a lot of variables here, but I'll do whatever the under commissioners want to do. I'll put it off for a couple of weeks, but, it's.
If I could get those in 2 weeks, again,
I'll give them to you right now.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Well, part of them. 270 and below, I just did a rough count. I have about 25 on here.
Okay.
270 to 290, these are rough counts. I could have counted wrong, but around 30.
So the most are over 390 or 290.
Yes.
So we have almost 190 over, 190 people over 290.
And they're the ones that would probably need it.
Yeah.
I will double check that when I get back up there and let you know.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with giving them, like I said, I think 6 months is plenty of time to get them to use it. Like, my thought is if you're at you're at 290, you get to 300, you're at 450 hours if you don't take a vacation next week or next year. That's 40 hours. It's, you said 4 weeks of vacation. So you're at 450 hours of vacation next year. And then, what are we going to be doing at that point? So we're forcing people to take 200 hours of vacation next year if we do that.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate, I'm one of those guys that'd be over 290, I know, because I wouldn't take off because I want to get my, if you guys make a motion, what would the motion be?
So mine would be to, I don't know how to word this, but delay the 250 cap until June 30th of 2020.
Would you be willing to amend that motion to devise some sort of compensation or award for those employees who have had to come to work every day?
Yeah. Would you?
And we don't need an answer on that right now, but that is our plan.
Well, I mean, that's why I asked for those numbers of how much it would cost to pay out this 250 over this year. And if we're willing to look at that, then I'm fine looking at those numbers, but yes. So I could say, depending on what the numbers are, I'd really be willing to look at it. I can't guarantee I'm going to support it but I'd be definitely willing to look at it. My goal is that we can get some of these people that are at the 290 hours now to take 2 weeks off between now and June 30th. Because that will get them under the 250 hours. They've spent their time, they've gotten a little bit of time off. Even if they're taking a day every Friday or something like that, getting them the full time, that's what I'm thinking of. I don't want them to lose their time because they've earned it, but I also, if we have that same amount of people trying to take 2 weeks off between now and December 31st, we're hurting.
So how many hours would you suggest? Right now we're at 250. I thought maybe last week it was 50 hours you were suggesting.
You're talking about waiving the 250 completely as of the end of the year and cutting it off as of June 30th.
Exactly. Waive the 250 limit until June 30th. So if you had 300 whatever hours, you could have that. But by June 30th, you've got to get under that 250.
You got to be back to 250.
That's my thought.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
What are we going up to? It's no ceiling.
No ceiling. That 250 limit is waived until June 30th.
Of 2021.
2021.
Administratively, is that possible?
I will check. I can change the amounts in the system for the caps. The date could be tricky.
Because right now it's set up for a calendar year.
It's set for calendar year, and as soon as you flip that calendar year, it does the system does its thing. We'll have to, that's an unknown right now. I will have to check on that.
So if you can't do it, you come back to us.
Sorry for adding additional work. I apologize for that. I'm just trying to find a compromise in it. Hopefully that's a decent compromise, giving people the heads up what they're gonna have to expect.
Now, how does that affect our landfill employees? Is that, those 6-day workers, are they on that list?
Well, it would allow them the
Yeah,
additional
they're all
time as
part of
well.
Yeah, they're all part of this list. Yes.
Excuse me.
Court, you want to form a motion?
So I'll make the motion to, I don't know what you call it, extend the 250-day or a 250-hour vacation leave till June 30th of 2021. So the
Last day of June?
last day of June.
With, whatever Commissioner Kiefer said with, didn't we say something there?
Well, I think we're gonna come back at a later point and look at some type of, if they're, still over those hours.
I don't
look
think,
at
that doesn't have to be part of the motion, just an agreement that we would do that. Is that appropriate? However you want to say it.
I mean, Court, I really appreciate what you did. I think that's a good compromise to put an end date on when those vacation days could be used. I still think without something definite, the unfair advantage falls to those employees who have had to come in and work every day. It could be a separate motion, that's fine, but
We can come back and address that as another issue.
I would like that to be addressed.
Would you like
Okay.
for us to pull together a report then that identifies employees that have not taken a day off or used any vacation or personal leave since March 18th, which I believe was the first Monday of the pandemic, that employees started taking off? Is that how you'd like to identify them?
Well, I think it's based on those employees. If you work in emergency services, if you work in public works, or if you work at the landfill, those are employees that
Okay.
have had to
March 18th would be the start date.
come in.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but what I would like to see is maybe something, remuneration of some sort that we could
Okay.
compensate those employees. I don't know what would be fair, what would be legal.
I can reach out to the other MACO HR division departments and ask them what they've done, if they've offered any additional or, as you said, compensation.
My only question is if it's in account to vacation hours, if they're over the 250, we can't say emergency services, you're allowed to buy back, and administration, you're not. Sorry, Kirk, I didn't mean that.
That might get sticky legally.
Okay, so.
Okay, well, what
but
we have, we
definitely,
have.
I think we need to come back and look at some way of making it fair. It's not gonna be equal, but making
I
it
would
fair.
second Court's motion with one discussion. What would complicate it by going to the end of the year?
I think the reason why I go in the end of the year, again, people over 10 years, they're gonna accumulate another 160 hours. And if they're already at the 290 mark, then they're at the 350 hour mark if they didn't take vacation. So this is giving them time to take a vacation, and not accumulating another 160 hours. So it's just trying to give it an endpoint, saying, look, we understand that this was a problem, but I also understand that you didn't get 250 hours in one. So I think it's just the way.
But wasn't at the end of that year, you could say, okay, you guys didn't do what you're supposed to do, what the intent was, now, too bad.
Well, that's kind of where we're at now. So if you, in 2017, you had 200 hours, we made it to 240, then we made it to 250, and we still have people that aren't there. I think we need to have an endpoint. I understand this was a different year, but there needs to be an endpoint. I just don't want to give them the entire year, but I also understand if we have 190 employees trying to take 80 hours of vacation between now and December 31st,
Right,
it's
gotcha.
gonna screw us. So I'm trying trying to give a little bit of leeway, but I don't think that much leeway is acceptable.
We have a motion on the floor to extend it to June 30th, 2021 at 250 hours. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. But we also have an agreement to
I'm a no.
support.
At this time, I'm a no. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
3-1. And we also have an agreement to come back to review the suggestions about those who had to work because of their essential service.
Yeah.
Okay, Wayne, is that correct? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Passes 3-1.
Thank you.
Next up, residency requirement for director's position. Deb Condo, welcome back.
Thank you. Bear with me one moment, please. Thanks, Tara.
Oh, you want us to start?
That would be nice, but no.
Hey, that on the residency-
I got this. Commissioners, thank you. I'd like to present to you for discussion today consideration of the removal of the residency requirement for director-level positions. The reason for this is that given our location in Maryland, Washington County, in the tri-state area, a lot of our employees live in neighboring counties of bordering states, such as Franklin County for PA, as well as Berkeley County and Martinsburg. Of the 23 counties that I reached out to in Maryland, we are only one of 3 counties that have a residency requirement for director-level positions. I pulled together information on proximity to our downtown location to cite examples. For Hagerstown, if you live in Sandy Hook, Maryland, we are roughly 25 to 40 miles away, depending on which road or route you take. However, for employees who live in Greencastle, they're only 12 miles away. Hancock, roughly 30 miles, yet Martinsburg is 23. I would just like for you to entertain the idea that we can expand our talent pool from within our own ranks of employees. And I would hate for us to lose an employee who is on a progressive path of growth in the county and has developed their skill set within departments or divisions, miss out on an opportunity to stay with the county and move into a director role because they do not reside in Washington County.
I would actually agree with that's always been sort of a thorn in my side, because I mean, a couple minutes from Greencastle, a couple minutes from Waynesboro, a couple minutes from even 25 minutes from Chambersburg, which is still Franklin County. I think I would be very receptive to that, because I think everything you said is true. I think I would maybe modify it slightly, with the exception of county administrator, who might have to come in quickly, or Division of Emergency Services. Sorry, Dave, don't move. I think I would modify it a little bit like that. I thought first about putting a circle for a mileage, but you know, I don't know if we want to get that complicated. We certainly don't want a director that lives in Harrisburg.
And
you know,
preference could be given to.
I don't know if you'd want to do it's just me thinking out loud, just a circle, but I think some of our 2 most crucial people that might have to be here quickly is administrator and Division of Emergency Services. I mean, it's just me throwing it out there. Do we need them to be county resident? If we're going to do it, just do it all the way across the board.
11 counties in Maryland that respond. I have 3 that did not respond: Anne Arundel, Calvert, and Prince George's. But of the others that responded, there are 11 counties that require, and they have various titles: county administrator, county manager, CEO, county executive, or director of administration. It's all the same position, just different titles. There are 11 that require those positions, or the county administrator in our county, to be residents of the county. County attorney showed up on 3, county engineer 2, Director of Administration. Well, as I said, I call that County Administrator 1.
Would you be interested in including those employees who report directly to the commissioners, like our county administrator, county attorney, county CFO?
Yeah, I don't really, if we have an emergency meeting, obviously the clerk should be here pretty quick, but, yeah, I mean, I'm open to any suggestion. I just think I just don't agree with making our directors, all of them, have to live in the county, because you do miss some talent. And I understand the intent and all that, but I don't know, Wayne, what would be the answer then? Would you draw, we still don't want we don't want Andrew for Public Works, we don't want him living in Harrisburg. So how would you stop that?
I'm kind of in favor of keeping this the way it is. I think we can always make a case-by-case exception. There's always unique things that pop up that, we can never plan for. One thing that frustrates me a little bit is congressmen don't have to live in their congressional districts that they represent. I think we have one like that. And I understand congressional districts change every so often, and but I think the reason we adhered by that policy is we say that those who have an influence over maybe its tax policies or general laws and regulations of our county should also be subject to those same taxes and laws themselves.
So you're saying case by case? I'd be worried about that, because if I didn't hire you, because I just didn't like you, and you lived in Waynesboro, but I hired Court, I think people could come back and say, hey, you hired him, but why didn't you hire me? I mean, we can tell them, we could say, hypothetically, just in our mind, you weren't qualified. I personally would want more of a consistent, instead of just picking and choosing who we want to live in or out of the county. Now, that's just me, so somebody else's better idea.
I think the county administrator should 100% be a resident, and I think that we could put that other directors levels will give preference to a county citizen. That's my opinion. I think county administrator 100% needs to be in the county. Like you said, they have a lot of influence over taxes, over every budget, everything.
And they're out in the public.
So I 100% agree with that. And I could see giving preference for everybody else. I kind of see your thought on the county clerk and the CFO, but I kind of also don't at the same time. But
where do you draw the line with which employees? I think planning and zoning has a lot to do with them living here, and how land is zoned that they may own or may one day own, or their family owns. They would be subject to that as well. Go to engineering and construction management, the permits, director of permits. Those are things that they would be subject to also if they lived here. Where do you draw the line with that?
Well, that was my point. I think county administrator and then preference towards. That's my thought, because I agree that we do live. I mean, from West Virginia to Pennsylvania is 12 miles. Right there on 81. Might be 12 and a half, whatever. But you're right there. And we do have a lot of people that, yes, they live in West Virginia, they live in Pennsylvania, but they spend all their money here. We do have those people. And we've got to look at it. And you do have a very valid point about every single one of those positions having some type of influence over what we do here, and then not living there. It's the same thing. We have a whole bunch of teachers that live in other states, but they teach here, and our tax dollars are paying them. I mean, we're never, because of our where we're located, it's never going to be a fair playing field.
I personally just don't like making exceptions. Designate administrator, and I'm, hypothetically, Division of Emergency Services. I just don't like picking and choosing who we want to pick if they live or live out in the county. I'd just soon make it even across the board. That's just my opinion. Even across the board, where we don't have that anymore. But though it does worry me about that, it would be hard to discriminate against somebody who lived in Harrisburg if we did that.
Yeah, I'm okay with administrator and emergency service living here. The other requirement we're gonna lose talent. So I would support a motion just to require the county administrator, emergency service director.
Would you include on that, Commissioner Klein, county clerk, CFO, and a county attorney?
No, I don't see where they would be an emergency response.
I would harken back again to, it's frustrating for me that congressmen don't have to live in the district that they represent. I think those county
the
department heads that we
commissioners- the
mentioned
commissioners
represent
do.
Washington County. The
It
commissioners
would.
do, you're right, those are the elected
Yeah,
positions.
it all-
But those,
it all-
excuse
I'm
me,
sorry.
Commissioner Klein.
Go ahead.
But I do believe that those employees who do have some influence, the division directors, those who represent us in Annapolis, for example, who might have to go down and testify in Annapolis on a cause on behalf of Washington County. Don't you think it's awkward that they may not live in our county, but they may be a resident of Pennsylvania, and they would have to advocate for something in Maryland that might be in complete opposite direction of what they're subjected to themselves in Pennsylvania or in West Virginia?
But I understand, it's, there's differences, but it's the same thing as, you know, in the Congress, yes, they've gotta be the representative, but their staff does not have to live in the state that they represent. The congressman has to live in the state, but their staff does not, at all.
But
There's no requirements.
What about the district, though, that they represent? They're representing Washington County.
Yeah, but that's
The,
what I'm
the, the district. I'm talking about the congressman.
Yeah, no, the congressman, their staff does not have to even be in the state. that
I think
they-
there's a strong correlation. I think when we send our staff down to Annapolis to argue on our behalf for a bill or legislation, I think it's awkward that they would be arguing or justifying something that they themselves would not be subject to. I think this needs to be
It ultimately
carefully
comes back to the commissioners being in charge, and that, again, I'll support the administrator and Department of Emergency Service person living here.
But
Commissioners,
You
I
finish
agree
your
with that.
comments, we need to
But I-
move on.
I just have one other quick question, then, if that's the point, then why would you ever have an exception? Cause you said it'd be a case-by-case exception.
You know, Court, I think, I know where you're going with that, and there's always something that we could never foresee. What if the roles were reversed and it was an existing employee who needed an exception?
Oh, I
Okay,
agree
that's,
with you.
that's where we're going with that, and I
No.
know that's what you're thinking.
No, no, what I'm saying is I agree. I agree there's exceptions. And I agree that there's people that live in the other, outside states that have their whole heart and everything dedicated to our county to grow. I 100% believe it's possible. And that's why I'm saying I don't think we should limit our pool because of it. Now, I agree, there's some. I think the county administrator, I can agree with Department of Emergency Services. But I don't think, I guess, I think we don't need to get into a constant case-by-case battles, I guess what I'm saying.
I'd make the motion that we waive the residency of directors with the exception of Director of Division Emergency Services and the County Administrator.
Okay, I have a first, is there a second?
Second that.
Could I ask for an amendment to that? Would there be support? I will vote in support of it if we would include county administrator, county clerk, county CFO, county attorney, and if you want Division of Emergency Services Director, that's fine too. If you would include those positions, I will vote in support.
Name it again?
County administrator, county clerk,
We had administrator.
what?
Administrator.
County,
vol-
okay, county
and D-
attorney.
and
I'm just
DES.
listing all of the positions.
Attorney.
County attorney, county clerk, you have county clerk, county CFO, and our Division of Emergency Services Director.
I'm only in agreement with the first two, the administrator and DS.
I would recommend that you consider just doing county administrator as opposed to carving out other exceptions. My concern, specifically if you include the Division of Emergency Services or some other departments, is that it may be subject to constitutional challenge.
Okay, I'll change the motion to waive the residency for directors with the exception of County Administrator.
Okay, we have a change of the motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, first and second, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
No.
No, 3-1. Thank you very much, thanks for the discussion.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Now I will need a motion
Motion to adjourn.
to go into closed session.
To adjourn and go into
Because my
closed session.
glasses fogged up. Thank you.